This morning, I ran across a story that I wanted to share with you. A couple pictures that we'll share. Laura's always so good about getting my pictures in at that point, and she's taught me how to look for pictures at that point. And we'll get to those in a moment. But let me just start where we are this morning in that respect. Of all the programs and all the things that are on television to watch, and some of them are better than others, for me, one of the better things to watch on TV are the commercials. I love to watch the commercials and think about what goes into those. I have a buddy who was in my college class years ago, back in the dark ages, when we got rid of the light and candles and all those things, and he works in Hollywood as a commercial builder. He works freelance and he builds commercials. And so every once in a while, I get a thought from him, or I see something that I have seen that he's done, and so the commercials are an important part of all the things that show up, as I said, on television. I'm being redundant here. I think some of the most creative and entertaining are those things that Madison Avenue and Hollywood develops for us to entice us to look at their products. The makers right now of certain truck types are in the news at that point, especially the sport utility vehicles, the SUVs for short. And those ads, I've seen a couple of them recently that I find are tremendously creative and really kind of interesting and bold in their attempts to market for us their products in this mind-boggling situations. The particular brand doesn't matter: Ford, Chevrolet, Toyota, Ram. That's not important. According to the pitch, let's think about that for a moment. You find them in a certain commercial high up on a mountain crag, and they're in the middle of nowhere. I think maybe something like it could be over the Grand Canyon. There's this little teeny precipice of land, and on the top of there is this pickup truck. And I go, yeah, well, that happened recently. They brought that up by helicopter, I'm sure, at that point. That's not the thing. Or you get the ones, they're just really humorous. And I came across this one, and the picture's now over my shoulder for you to look at. I really got a kick out of this one. The photo shows a massive vehicle up to its headlights in this particular situation, up in its headlights in water, so that it's forging across this foreboding-looking river. The idea that they are trying to get across to us is that this particular vehicle can handle any situation, that this particular vehicle can across any foreboding-looking river. The idea is, well, it's only when you look at the fine print. This came out of a truck magazine, as a matter of fact, and I found the picture really kind of interesting. But it's the fine print that you don't read so carefully across the bottom, and you see the following: warning. Traversing deep water can cause serious damage which may void vehicle warranty. Yeah. Did you catch that? Traversing deep water may cause serious damage which may void manufacturer's vehicle warranty. I guess when it comes down to it, folks, deep water in life is not only just for trucks. It's for all of us, isn't it? For those of you here in the sanctuary this morning, for a couple of you friends that are at home watching this online, you'd be with us if you could, but you're going through some stuff right now. We've got some surgeries coming, right, Raj? It's a couple weeks off. Not a big deal unless it's your knee. It's not a big deal unless it's your situation. It's not a big deal unless it's a problem that's you're facing at that point. Deep water is deep water. As we travel down the roadways in life, I believe this morning that all of us this morning, and here I'm not trying to be comical or funny or even clever, but dead serious. All of us find ourselves surrounded with oceans of grief or pounding waves of trouble. In short, we all need help. Would you agree with that assessment in life? We could start here with Roger over on this side and work our way all the way here to Ben on this side, and I would hear example after example after example. They might be a little different, or they might be surprisingly the same. We all find ourselves wading through the deep waters. So does David. And we go this morning back to the book of Psalms for just a few moments to stop and look and listen and think. The writer of the Psalms frequently mentions his need for assistance. He says it all through the book. He says in Psalm 9, for instance, that God is, quote, a refuge in the time of trouble. And frankly, in Psalm 27, he says, in the day of trouble, he will set me high upon a rock. Thoughts and images like that, to be perfectly honest, are important to me because I go through some of those same kinds of things that you do. And especially when I think about some of the issues in life that I encounter. And from week to week, as I said, I sit back and I watch and I listen and I try to think about areas where I think might be itches that need to be scratched for the celebration congregation. And I wait for God to deal with our lives, to deal with my life in some of the issues that I encounter in life. And he does. You too. David says here this morning, in the 69th Psalm, it's just a few verses. It's coming up here. Let's look at them. And let's think about these verses and what they might mean to us. Verse 1 through 3 and verse 13 through 7, just for sake of time, we've condensed it a little. Save me, O God. Well, that tells me right off the bat that we're dealing with an issue of something going on. Save me, O God, for the waters have come up to my neck. I sink into the miry depths, and there is no foothold. I have come into the deep waters. The floods, they engulf me. I'm worn out from calling for help. My throat is parched. Hang on to that word. We'll come back. Verse 13, but I pray to you, O Lord, in the time of your favor, in your great love, O God, answer me with your sure, your certain found salvation. Rescue me from the mire. Do not let me sink. Deliver me from those who hate me, from its deep waters. Do not let the floodwaters engulf me, or the depths swallow me, or the pit close its mouth over me. Answer me, O Lord, out of your goodness, the goodness of your love, in your great mercy. Turn to me. Do not hide your face from your servant. Answer me quickly, for I am in trouble. I am in need. As I said, I picked this passage actually about a week and a half ago. I was reading along, and I was looking for something else, quite frankly. And I ran across these words again from this psalm, and they struck my attention and my heart, and I thought, okay, Lord, once in a while I try to listen. I'm getting what I think you want me to say. So let's think about these verses for a few moments and listen with our ears and with our heart and with that knot in the pit of our stomach to what the Spirit of God is trying to say to us. David says, verse 1, right off the bat, "For the waters have come up to my neck." It's a plea to the Lord for help and for mercy. David realizes here that he's in serious trouble about something that at this point we're not told what, and maybe that's just as well. Okay, can you identify that? He's in trouble over his head. Yeah, I'm up to my neck. There used to be a little saying, I'm up to my neck in alligators. Do you ever find yourself up to your neck swimming in alligators? Let me turn that around. Anybody swimming with the gators this morning? Maybe God's got something for us. Let's look and let's listen. I'm up to my. It's a plea for mercy. David realizes that he's in serious trouble over something that he can't control. And so my first question to you at that point is, can you identify with that? Do you have some kind of a situation in your life that you aren't able to control or deal with this morning? During the wintertime, I'm reminded of this scene. Marcia and I were sitting poolside back in mid-January when you were shoveling snow, and we were sitting one afternoon in Florida around the pool, and I got to be watching this little girl. Oh, she must have been about 6 or 7 or so, and she it may have been grandma now that I think about it. And she was in the pool, and she had her little swimmies on, and she was and the next thing you knew, she had wandered out into a little deeper water, and grandma, I'm not to think of it, I'm sure it was grandma, got after her and wanted her to come back to the shallow end, and so she paddled back out of the water. But interestingly enough, when she got down to the shallow end of the pool, she was still over her head. She was only about yay tall or so, and she had her little floaties on, and she was still in 3 or 4 foot of water and she was over her head, even in the shallow end, and she was kind of unaware of that. And I thought about that as I watched Grandma trying to entice her to come back, and I thought, there's a sermon illustration. How like it is for all of us, how easily we can encounter difficulties that are well beyond our ability to deal with. How easily we can be lulled into a false sense of security over something that's going to cause us a whole heap a lot of trouble. And how often we need help in dealing with it. The life ring, aptly named, that we need to reach out for. That's always available. You may not see it all the time. You may not think about it, but it's there. David says in this particular psalm, in verse 2, and I'm going to pick and pull little phrases and lift them up for you to think about for a moment. David says in verse 2, I sink into the miry depths, into the quagmire, into the quicksand at the point. I sink into the miry depths where there is no foothold, where there is deep water, where there are floods. David realizes that the trouble he is in, well, the fact of the matter is that he's in over his head. No foothold. He can't touch the bottom. Sometimes my wife, who's not a bad swimmer, but she's not a great swimmer at that point, but she doesn't like it. She's better now, but she used to be, she didn't particularly care for deeper water. And I said, it really doesn't matter, sweetie. You're 5'2" or 5'3", something like that. It doesn't matter if it's 5 foot of water, 6 foot of water, or 12 foot of water, or 80 feet of water. Over your head's over your head. Right? In my Florida situation, going back to that illustration, and think about this little girl. She's unaware, while here, in David's case, he knows his plight. And he's smart enough at that point, he's cognizant enough at that point, he's aware enough at that point to realize that he's going to search out for help from the only legitimate source possible. And I like the fact that the scriptures at that point don't tell us what his issue is. Doesn't really matter what his issue is, because it's not my difficulty, perhaps. It's something else at that point. It doesn't matter what our difficulty is. An issue for Ben may not be a problem for me, but it might be a problem for Dick. And Dick's issue may not be quite there, but Roger may have that same. And so we have to understand that we all face different kinds of issues, but the source of our help, the source of our support, the source of our salvation is something else. It brings me to my first point that I want to put up for you. Here it comes. It doesn't matter what the difficulty in life might be, because God is sufficient. God is sufficient. Whether it's an accident, or an illness, or a job situation, or a relationship, or whatever it is that's threatening, threatening to overwhelm you, the bottom line is, at the end of the day, when all is said and done, God is sufficient. Do you hear that? David's this amazing character. Sometimes he's on top of the world. Sometimes he's in the bottom of despair. Well, I can identify with that. Can you? Sometimes things are going really well, and other times, not so good. He says in verse 3, what's his word? I am worn out. I'm pooped. You know that feeling? I am worn out from calling for help. And my throat is parched. And I said, hang on to that word a moment. Think about that. You get the feeling, here's an image. The ship is sunk out at sea, or the airplane has gone down at sea, and survivors are in the water, and they're in the middle of the ocean at that point, and there's water as far as they can see. And it's not worth a thing. They can't drink a drop. David is that point. My throat is parched. I don't give a whole lot of thought about it until it happens. You don't really think. Let me pose a thought. You don't really think about not having something to drink until it's not available. Right? David says, my throat is parched. My body is drying up. And he's in the midst of whatever the situation of life is, and it's overwhelming at the point. You get the feeling that David at this point, the psalmist, is at the end of his rope. Let me suggest something for you. Speaking of that, when you get to the end of your rope, I'd suggest you tie a knot in the bottom of it and you hang on. Hang on, because it's gonna get better. God is sufficient. I'm going to say that a jillion times this morning till you're tired of hearing it, or until you believe it, as the case may be. God is sufficient. And he's faithful to his children. And it's in his time, the time that he deems best, the time that he will respond. So when we're in the midst of the situation, whatever it is, job, illness, durations, whatever vacancy. What are we going to do as a church? Where are we going to go? The weeks are dragging by. It's getting older. We need to get rid of this old guy. We need to get our new guy in here. We need to move on. Well, we think about that. God's thoughts are there. In the book of Isaiah, in chapter 55, Isaiah says, words of this effect: My timing is a little different than yours. My thoughts are not your thoughts. And my ways are not your ways, by the way. As my thoughts are higher than your thoughts, and my ways are better, you need to learn to, and I'm paraphrasing, you need to learn to trust me. And that brings up the second point of the 5 that are before us this morning to think about. My ways, your ways are not there, but he's there for us. Yet in all of that, I'm reminding you of this truth. I'm his child, and you're his child. And he cares for me, and he cares for you. And I'm secure in his hands, in his sure, in his certain salvation. And you and I too, we are secure. We are secure. Think about that thought for a moment. There is no place that you can fall, no place that you can get to, even though it might seem like that at the moment. There is no depth to which you can go. Corrie ten Boom said something about that years and years ago. There is no depth to which you can think that God's love is not deeper yet still. She was right. For you, some of you that are not familiar with that name, Corrie ten Boom was a Dutch woman in the Netherlands during the Second World War. She lost her father. She lost her sister. But she lost all of her family. She's the one out of several in the ten Boom family. He was a watchmaker in The Hague. Went to concentration camps. And a fluke in the paperwork got her transferred to a particular group rather than in the other group that were exterminated and were lost. She's the only survivor of her family. And she writes over and over in a number of her books, but this one, she experienced the love of God. There's no depth that I can sink to, but his love is not deeper still. I don't know what else to say to that. My little piddly problems hardly seem worth mentioning. But I take stock in that he's there, and I have a sure sense of salvation, a sure sense of God's presence, a certain sense of that at that point. We move down to verse 14 and 15 together as a pocket of here. And David says in 14, rescue me from the mire, from the muck, from the mud, from all the quagmire, from all the things that drag me down. Rescue me from the mire. Do not let me sink. Deliver me from those who hate me, from the deep water, from the flood depths, from the flood waters, from the situations that would tend to overwhelm me. Now, those verses are repeating, a repetition of something that was said earlier in the psalm. And often when you read through the scriptures and you find something stated, and then you come back a few moments later to the same theme again, that's there for a reason. It's to buttress, to reinforce that at that point. And it just seems to relieve this tremendous feeling of frustration that we have overwhelming that point. We do not understand the situations in life sometimes, do we? Whether or not they may be true for anybody else, they're true to us. Do not let, the psalmist says, do not let the flood waters engulf me. That leads me to the third point. Can we have the third point up? Whatever the issues, the situations of life, the fact of the matter remains. that our loving God comes to meet us at our point of, at our place of our need, always. On the far end of the airport in Grand Rapids, there's a hangar that is lit all the time, and when they roll the hangar doors out, the Coast Guard rolls out one of a couple of helicopters that are stationed there. One of them came over the house the other day. I mean, that buzzard went right over our house, nose down. He was headed out into the lake. He was going somewhere, and he wasn't mincing any time. Nose down, he was boogieing at that point. Can we have the picture? Next thought. That chopper was going out to get to somebody. And it reminded me, as I remind you, that our God always comes to meet us at our point of need, at our place of need. And David says, do not let her stop. Don't let the floodwaters engulf me or the depths swallow me up. And we could think of biblical example after biblical example after biblical example of that throughout the pictures of the pages of Scripture. For instance, there's Abraham on the mountaintop when he goes with his son Isaac, and he's told to go and offer a sacrifice. And Isaac's a young man at that point. He's no dummy, and he looks around and he says, "Oh, all right, Lord, Dad, there's the wood, and there's the knife, and I know what's going. Where's the sacrifice?" That's Genesis 22, if you want to look the story up. And God has to speak to Abraham and bring him along. Or there's Elijah and the prophets of Baal out of Kings 16, 17, 18, and that spot. And he's just won this tremendous victory Elijah has over the 400 prophets of Baal and all of that story in Kings. Wonderful story, by the way. And the next thing you know, this giant at that point of the faith, Elijah, is running for the tall timbers because Jezebel is undermining his confidence, and he's in conflict. But God is faithful. Or there's the next. There is. Let's see what else. Oh, well, there's Daniel in the lion's den. You know that story. Or there's in the passages that are before us, there's King Saul that's pursuing David himself right now, and he doesn't know what's coming next either. Or there's Jonah and the great fish. Or there's Paul and his thorn. Or even Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane in his prayer. I know what you ask of me, Lord, and Father, I will do that. But if there's some other way, that's the human side coming up for a moment. Do you remember that story? I'll sacrifice I'll give my life because my people are worth it. But if there's some other way, let's take it. If not, then I will be obedient. And we find God meeting the need in a variety of situations. But the bottom line is always the same. God is being sufficient at that particular time. In life's darkest moments, in its blackest times, how good is our God. How loving, how merciful, and as we sang this morning, how faithful, how faithful. In the 16th verse, we move on to the next thought. David writes, answer me, or speak to me. Give me some kind of sign, some kind of direction, Lord, out of the goodness of your love. In your great mercy, oh God, turn to me. There's a chorus. We didn't sing it this morning. I thought of it afterwards there, or I might have suggested we do it. But the words at that point go, my life is in you, Lord. My strength is in you, Lord. My hope is in you, Lord. It's in you. It's in you. It's in you. And that's true. David understands that. And he knows. He knows that that God's mercy knows no equal. David is sure of that. David is confident of that. David is confident, and so can we be. The fourth point. God's love for his children knows no end. It knows no boundary. It knows no limitation. It knows no equal. He is confident of that, and we can be as well. Because of that, David can say, oh Lord, how excellent is your name, how good you are. Psalm 8. Finally, we come down to the last verse in the passage that we think about this morning. Do not hide your face from your servant. Answer me, Lord, quickly, for I'm in trouble. I'm in need. That's been going on in this whole psalm. And it all comes down to this amazing truth, folks. No matter the circumstances or the situations of life, David is confident that his God is, here's the word, faithful. Faithful. He's confident that his God will never leave him or forsake him, no matter what. No matter what. Even when David has failed God and behaved in life, in his actions and his attitudes, in ways that we might describe as, so disappointing. And he does that. He doesn't walk on water. He's human. He's like you and he's like me. He has his good moments and he has his not so good moments. But this is not important. God's faithfulness is important. That's the key. God has not hid his face. He's not turned around and said, I don't want anything else to do with you. You're on your own, buddy. You made your bed, now lie in it. No. He comes to us. He comes to you. And he comes to you, folks. As he comes to me. And he says, I will be there. Traversing deep water won't affect your spiritual warranty view. It's not like the truck going through the deep water at all. God will always be there to guarantee his support for you. And that goes all the way around then to come back to this question for you this morning. Are you in deep water? Are you in deep water this morning? Whatever that deep water might mean for you, then simply reach up and take God's hand. One more picture. Here's the last one. I'm going to let that just sink in for a second. Reach up. Take the hand of God's mercy. One more point. One last thought. Number 6. Here's the message of God's word for us this morning in a nutshell, and something that hopefully you can remember and take home. When passing through the waters of deep sorrow or frustration or despair, and you get no help from others, just remember Jesus is always there. Always there. Because he loves you. And you're important to him. And no matter how deep the water, you're not alone. You're never alone. Amen. Let's pray a moment. Father, thank you this morning. For the simple reminder that the Scriptures provide for us, that no matter what, you are there for us because you love us. And you're faithful. And each of these folks in this room right now and those watching are special to you. And you love them. And you've given yourself for them. Through faith, as we read in the Scriptures, believing we might have life given to us. It's that simple. May we reach out and accept the gift of life that you offer to us in Jesus, in the midst of our deep water. Amen.